the show.
Yeah.
And of course, remember Jamaica or basketball team.
Go and support the team.
Support the team, yeah.
Versus the Bahamas and versus
on
Canada.
Thursday and versus Canada on Sunday.
Yeah.
So get your tickets and let's go support our Jamaican, athletes and make them, great. You know what I mean? Because you don't know the vibe. It's like how Razzie was talking about the ear. I tend to think that it's when you look in an audience and you see, your supporters out there and them a cheer and a chant, it gives you that vibe.
But guess what? It also has the opposite effect if it's not there. Imagine you have home court advantage.
Yeah.
And
nobody
not there.
Yeah. You feel like
it's a dampener.
Yeah,
it's a dampener.
So guys, let's go
All right,
out.
So let's go out and support.
Yeah. Lots to enjoy, lots to
full up the place in black, gold and green.
You think
sound like a football kid.
Away kids. I gotta tell you. But thanks to everybody for watching this morning, and thanks to you for being here with us. Remember, kindness is karma, and kindness is magic. So please enjoy yourself, have a good day, spread good vibes, and be the blessing that you want to see. Remember, the devil find work for idle hands.
To find something
if you
to
feel
do.
like you don't have nothing to do, spread up your bed. Your bed
Tidy
won't
up your
tell life
place.
on you, and your pillow won't put in a mix up. And when you're tired to sleep on the bed, go under it, go clean out the cobweb. You hear me? All right.
Oh.
Good. A word to the wise is sufficient. Have a great day, guys. Bye.
Good evening. Tonight, inside Lead Stories Global Lead. Global instability, regional pressure, and national capacity. A woman burned alive in Westmoreland now requires an airlift out of Jamaica. So why, in 2026, does this country still not have a world-class burn unit? Then, Cuba under intensified sanctions, Venezuela unsettled, Haiti adrift, and the United States arriving in St. Kitts to align priorities. Is the Caribbean leading, or is it being led? And later, the U.S. Supreme Court curtails President Trump's tariffs. He responds with a 10% tariff on the world and says he's possibly going up to 15. What does that mean for a small import-dependent state like Jamaica? And what does it mean for the rest of the Caribbean? I'm Jody Ann Quarry, and this is Lead Stories Global Lead. We begin at home. Tonight, a neighborhood dispute in Whithorn, Westmoreland has desecrated and denigrated into a scene of unthinkable horror. 40-year-old Dacia Forrester is instead clinging to life at the Cornwall Regional Hospital with third-degree burns covering 70% of her body, instead of preparing for her birthday tomorrow. Reports indicate that a confrontation at a gas station escalated until gasoline was used as a weapon and a lighter was struck. But while the police have 3 women in custody, the real emergency is medical. Dacia's family is racing to raise $55,000 US for an urgent air ambulance to the United States. Why? Because Jamaica does not have a fully operational advanced burn facility meeting global standards. Let's take a listen to this report here from CVM News.
Turned violent Thursday afternoon, leaving 1 woman with severe burns and 2 others in police custody. The incident happened at the Fesco service station in Whithorn, located just across from the Whithorn police station, shortly after 3:30 p.m. on February 19. Reports indicated that an argument over change between a 30-year-old pump attendant and a 42-year-old businesswoman escalated, with both parties allegedly returning armed, leading to a violent confrontation. The victim's sister, Carol Blackwood Hewitt, says the family has received little support as her sister remains in critical condition.
I saw videos of my sister that she was third-degree burned and she's in a critical condition. I am begging help. I am in need of assistance.
Local doctors have advised that the extent of her injuries requires a specialized treatment overseas. However, family members say they cannot afford the cost and are appealing for urgent public and government assistance.
I'm pleading to even the Prime Minister and Your Holiness to help me. I ask for my friends and family here and abroad to assist us. I have no other means of getting this $55,000 US to help her. Please, I'm asking Jamaica to assist me. I beg you all for assistance.
The Burn Foundation of Jamaica, air ambulance services and overseas medical teams have been placed on standby as efforts intensify to secure urgent treatment for the severely burned victim.
Every mickle, make a muckle. You could go to www.crisissupportcharity.org. A link is there where persons can make donations. So please, whatever you can give, please, to help, please. Our phone number, Luke?
Right, our phone number is 876-344-7028. You can give us a call if you have, want to give any assistance to the family.
Kevin Black reporting for CVM News.
That CVM report puts in context why we're having this conversation today. A burn unit is clearly something that Jamaica needs and is critical in the conversations that the country is now having. Joining us are two men who have dedicated their life's work to helping persons get the help that they need. Co-founders of the Burn Foundation of Jamaica and Crisis Support Charity, Stephen Josephs and Luke Josephs. Thanks so much for joining us inside Lead Story, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's harrowing. It's stressful. Help us understand exactly the severity here. What specifically is missing in Jamaica that makes Desia's case so significant that it requires an airlift? Stephen?
Right, so when you have a burn over 40%, it's very difficult to manage. In Desia's case, her burns are 70%. And so we have been managing this with an hospital in Miami and the largest burn center in the United States.
When you say 70%, 40%, what are you saying? The coverage over her body is what you're talking about?
The coverage over her body is 70%.
70% of her body is
Burned. Badly.
When you have 70% of your body burned, your skin is now open, a wound, exposed, what does that mean for your ability to fight off infections and diseases?
Well, it's very difficult to fight off infection and diseases. So what is needed at this time is for Dacia to go into a specialized unit. And so when she goes into the specialized unit, because her body temperature fluctuates, and so while her body temperature fluctuates, they have a room that can actually go to her body temperature, so her organs can have a better fight. This is not available here. They have an infectious room. This is not available here as well. And so it's very critical for her to leave the island. We're actually in the 9th hour. I spoke with the main plastic surgeon, the leading plastic surgeon, just 30 minutes ago before I stepped into this interview. And they have still indicated the willingness to accept her, because that's the only unit she can go in the United States at this time, based on the extensiveness of burn she now suffering.
Luke Joseph, let me come to you because you're watching a situation where someone desperately needs to be moved out of the country. Hearing Stephen explain to us how critical it is that 70% of her being burnt needs to be airlifted. How much does a medical evacuation of this nature cost, and who pays?
Well, the medical evacuation actually costs $55,000 US dollars, that is, and that is because of what is needed to equip the ambulance based on the patient needs.
Oh, so it's not just putting her in an ambulance and taking her there. It's while she's in the air ambulance, she still needs to be stable as her organs are trying their very best to make it through and she doesn't get overwhelmed. Okay, so that I think is very important for Jamaicans to understand, because we just thought it was like a taxi. You put her in it and you take her across. That's why it's so expensive.
Right, because they have to have like specialized equipment based on her need, specialized doctors as well based on the patient needs.
That's about 8.5 million Jamaican dollars, though. Who pays that kind of money?
Well, we have been appealing to the public. We're no strangers to helping persons who have been severely burned, not just in Jamaica alone, but in helping our Caribbean brothers as well. And so in this case, we're only doing it from a humanitarian standpoint, because this young lady can live if she gets specialized care. And so for persons who are watching, and from a humanitarian standpoint, whatever you can give, corporate Jamaica, whatever you can give. I received a call from the government today, and they're saying that they're going to see what they can do as well. So I'm appealing to everybody. The diaspora, from a humanitarian standpoint, this young lady can live, right? And the United States has responded. And so let us respond back in trying to save this young lady's life. The aircraft is still on standby.
Oh, so it's still available, waiting then for the funding
We're
to be able to go.
fighting to the 9th hour, and of course, we're in the 9th hour. Right?
Let me pull in Luke here for a second, because the appeal that you're making is one that is very clearly not only emotional but medical. Help us understand, Luke, for the average Jamaican watching, why can't she just go to a regular ward at KPH or Corner Regional Hospital that handles burn victims? What are they missing that she can't get here locally?
Well, you can,
let me answer that one for you. So basically, she can't go to a UWI or a KPH because of the extent of burn. As I said, it's over 40%.
But why don't we have the capacity here in Jamaica to be able to deal with that? That is the question, because for persons, they're understanding a burn, they have burns on their hands, they will treat it at home, you can go to the hospital and get some burn help and support. What is it that we're missing in these institutions that prevent us from being able to then provide the kind of extensive help and assistance that she might need at this time?
Well, as I said, I remember they're trying to look to see how they can create such a unit that can help persons with a certain level of burn. But, I mean, as I said, it is going to take, it's going to take a time. And still, you still have to have a memorandum with an international hospital because of the level they're at. It's very expensive. It's a very expensive venture when it comes on for burn care. Because if you don't have $1 million US, you can't go on a flight to the US or go into an hospital when you have over 70% burn.
All right, so we have some figures here for burn care in Jamaica versus the world, and some of the limitations that you have spoken of that we don't have here. Luke, just before we go, as you're talking to Jamaicans, as we've heard Stephen make the appeal, where is the implementation failing here? Why? What do we need to do to prevent another Dacia now having to make this sort of call again? What do we need to do?
Well, what we need to do is to amplify support so that we can actualize a burn unit here in Jamaica that can handle, up to a percentage of let's say 50 or 70% burns. Because even if you don't have a burn unit that can accommodate that percentage, we can still have, as Stephen said, a memorandum of understanding with an international hospital.
Some immediate partnership that allows for us to then put that in place. And I think that's going to be important. But it's also a preventable injury. Burning and fire being used as a weapon is dangerous. It causes lifelong injuries, and survivors have to deal with this for the rest of their lives. We also know that the University Hospital of the West Indies and Petrojam have been having discussions about a burn facility for years.
Right.
But we are now in 2026 having allocations being made, but not yet seeing that happen. That's why we've had to have Stephen and Luke Josephs here talking about the need for Dacia Forrester and the importance of that $55,000 in order to allow for her to get the help that she needs overseas. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. And also for persons that wishes to support Dacia with her air ambulance fee, they can actually give us a call at 876-344-7028, or they can visit our website at crisissupportcharity.org to make a donation.
Critical information there for all of those who are at home listening. Taking a break inside Global Lead, Inside Lead Story, and coming back to you. Shifting now to what's going on in CARICOM up next.
Jamaica's unemployment rate has fallen to 3.3%, down from 13.2% in 2016. Our government's continued focus on job creation is delivering real results. We are building Jamaica. The time by the Office of the Prime Minister is...
New fast food always tastes to savor. Giving you the best, giving you the flavor. Nicing up the kitchens all across Jamaica. Happy smile when you see the price you pay for. Corned beef and the sausage.
New pack.
Ketchup and the pepper sauce.
New pack.
Beans and the baked beef.
New pack.
Rice.
New pack.
Oil.
New pack.
Yes. New pack foods always taste to savor. Giving you the best, giving you the flavor. Nicing up the kitchens all across Jamaica. Happy smile when you see the price you pay for. New pack. More than just value.
Hi, I'm Landy. Welcome to NLA Connect, the National Land Agency's customer engagement platform. NLA Connect is a simple, user-friendly platform designed to help you share your feedback, get support, and updates about land-related matters. Available 24/7, NLA Connect allows you to share suggestions, comments, and commendations, submit queries and report issues, attach files with your requests, track requests and get real-time status updates, connect with NLA client engagement officers, and provide feedback on the service received by the platform. We're making it easier for you to connect with us. You can access NLA Connect via our website, using the kiosk at any of our offices, or scanning the QR code displayed at our locations. Need any help along the way? Check out our FAQs section. It has all the answers you need in one location. NLA Connect, your voice, our priority.
The geography of power matters. Cuba is close to Jamaica. Venezuela is close to Trinidad and Tobago. Haiti sits in between. And there's crisis and neglect in parts of the region. Well, we're watching as St. Kitts and Nevis is the ground zero for CARICOM Heads of Government meeting currently underway. And to help us figure out what we should be looking at, we're joined by independent defense analyst and security consultant from Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Sanjay Badri Maharaj. Dr. Maharaj, thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Dr. Badri Maharaj, we're watching a situation first with Cuba, where they're under intensified sanctions, fuel shortages, economic strain, humanitarian pressure, and it's not organic. It's one that has been put on by the United States for over 60 years and has intensified over the past few weeks. What does that mean for a region that shares history, but not necessarily political alignment?
Well, I think that there are a couple of things to bear in mind. Though the embargo has been on Cuba for about 60 plus years, Cuba received an enormous amount of subvention for part of it during the existence of the Soviet Union. So from about 1961 or thereabouts till 1989, the Cuban economy was essentially subsidized by the Soviet Union. when the Soviet Union collapsed, that was the end of it. And Cuba's situation was made worse by the embargo. Now, yes, there's been a tightening of sanctions now, cutting off oil supplies. But the problem is Cuba never made an adjustment when it had the breathing space to do so. And that is to change its economic structure. And I hate to say this, but Cuba's revolution did promise free and fair elections back in 1959. I haven't seen them yet, and I've been around for a very long time. I remember Castro, I remember Raul, I remember the entire lot. So the point is, Cuba is under strain not only from external pressure, but from its own internal challenges in failing to adapt to a very, very, very changing environment. It sought to replace the Soviet Union with Venezuela. And for a while, that kept its fuel situation relatively stable, but not its electricity power grid. Its power grid is decrepit, and it was only a matter of time before it failed again.
This is certainly something that we want to drill down into, because that special period in the 1990s when the Soviet Union collapsed and Cuba had to now deal with the brunt of its crises, led them into darkness, led them into having fuel shortages very similar to what's happening today. But as you said, the situation in which they were working was one where 30 years ago they had newer infrastructure. They don't have new infrastructure. They don't have parts anymore. They don't have the things that can put them in good stead. But the Venezuela issue is a big one. Venezuela dealing with now the kidnapping of its president and the first lady in January of this year has certainly exacerbated the situation. Mexico also being a country that provides about 30% of their oil, now being told by the United States, any country that helps Cuba is now likely to receive secondary sanctions. Venezuela no longer giving Cuba oil. Is it a situation where it's just too much? They've resisted 60 years, but are they able to resist this U.S. push?
It depends. What is the U.S. endgame? If the U.S. endgame is regime change, then they might be able to resist for a bit in respect of, increasingly repressive tactics. But if the U.S. objective is far more, shall we say, cynical, and that is simply to get the Cubans to completely open up their tourism sector, the U.S. doesn't care about this U.S. government anyway doesn't care about democracy one way or the other, as we saw in Venezuela. I mean, the regime is still there, the president isn't. So I would not be entirely surprised if some dirty backroom deal is sorted out, which satisfies neither the long-term aspirations of the Cuban people nor the long-term requirements of a Cuban economy. Cuba is not Venezuela. There's no bed of oil to automatically, that just managed moderately well would lead to a decent level of prosperity. So everything is being made worse, but a lot depends on what the end game is of the United States. And I'm not sure I know what it is. I do know, however, their Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, feels extraordinarily strongly about Cuba, and for understandable reasons.
Well, let me just give context to some of the things that you've said. One, about Marco Rubio at the end there. Marco Rubio of Cuban descent, his parents having left Cuba and had him in the United States. He is now Secretary of State in the United States, and now going down to that CARICOM heads of government meeting that's taking place in St. Kitts and Nevis. So that is important to have in context. But we're also talking about your comment earlier about Venezuela, the regime not changing. With President Nicolas Maduro and his wife kidnapped from the country, we have his vice president now, Delcy Rodriguez, currently heading the government there, meaning that there has been no radical shift. But the Caribbean is having a meeting now in St. Kitts about issues dealing with Cuba, dealing with Venezuela, dealing with Haiti, and anything else that they want to put on the agenda. But those are three of the biggest. As a Caribbean, as it looks at what is going on, being asked to choose, or is it being asked to be quiet?
I think it's a combination of the two, but I actually propose a third course. I don't think we should choose between Cuba and the United States. I mean, if that is your choice has to be protect yourselves at all costs. But I think
that is, Caribbean states should make sure that, in the words of some heads of government, Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness has said something similar here, saying that while former government heads can say things, he has the lives of Jamaicans in his hands. He is not in a position to be making wild statements that could put us all at risk. So it is a hunker down effectively scenario for all of CARICOM.
No, that's what I'm saying, is that look, I'm 52 now. Since I've known CARICOM, they've been coming out with the very hackneyed statements about Cuba and the embargo for a very long time. As CARICOM states, we have very legitimate concerns about Cuba. One, if Cuba's humanitarian crisis reaches a tipping point, we could see an influx of refugees. That is a very real risk. If there is that level of collapse and Cuba's weapon stockpiles get compromised, which is very possible, then we can be facing a security crisis, because the level of weapon stockpiles in Cuba are like nothing the Caribbean has ever seen before. We're talking about everything from surface-to-air missiles to small arms to tanks to artillery. I mean, the chaos that could ensue would make Haiti's fights look very tame. So we have very real concerns about those 2 points, and I think we should articulate them. Our solidarity must be with the Cuban people. That is a neutral statement. Let the Cuban people decide their fate. But the other thing is we could get a little bit creative and offer something. The CARICOM region has a very it should be very justifiably proud that for a very long time we are countries that are democracies. Despite all our challenges, we've remained multi-party democracies. Does it hurt us to offer to help Cuba transition to that? I mean, at the very least, the United States cannot object to it, and we introduce something new into the mix.
Well, an offer like that might be accepted if we didn't have the example of Haiti and CARICOM attempting to move them into a functional democracy that now has elections, and that not being something that has been successful, especially given
there is a difference,
that
this is where I'll point it out here.
The difference that might be there, given then the tenuousness of the situation in Cuba, is certainly something that we'll have to look at.
Fundamentally different in this case.
Why?
There's an opportunity in Cuba where there is still a government to organize and to have a phased transition to it, a controlled transition to it. Cuba is not lawless. There is still a functioning state. There's still a functioning security apparatus. And there's still, after a fashion, is a functioning government. That's whether I like it or not is neither here nor there. Therefore, it is going to be much easier to organize that transition if it's prepared to cooperate, or at least take some advice. Cuba also has a fundamental difference. Its population isn't in the state that Haiti is in.
But if you go back to what you said earlier about what the fundamental underlying objectives of the current U.S. administration are, if democracy is not in fact something that they're looking forward to, that it is instead tourism and the opening up of tourism in Cuba, or even bigger, that President Donald Trump is able to achieve something no president over the past 60-odd years in the U.S. has been able to, which is pulling down the Cuban regime, do those objectives matter if CARICOM is to then get involved?
Actually, they do, and actually, I don't see too much of a difference for either. This does not actually contradict American policies, whether we take the cynical approach or the regime change approach. There is every opportunity for the United States to then claim its approach, and its and you know, the United States will claim credit no matter what happens. So they will claim that their pressure helped CARICOM make this decision for it to happen.
Ooh, let's talk about that after the break, Dr. Badri Maharaj, as we continue to explore what's going on in the region and across the world and how it impacts Jamaica and CARICOM. Stay with us.
Everybody Everybody want to save a country right now.
One thing about Jamaicans, we might have differences, but we know when something is good for all of us. And when we work together against crime and violence, we are stronger than ever. And that's how we know the Citizen Security Plan can work.
That one that name CSP.
The Citizen Security Plan is an initiative of the Ministry of National Security in partnership with the European Union. It's an all-of-government effort to create safer streets and build stronger communities. Go to mns.gov.jm to learn how you can play your part.
Enjoy peace of mind knowing that your hard-earned money is protected by the JDIC. That's right, the JDIC through the Deposit Insurance Scheme guarantees up to $1.2 million of your deposits in commercial banks, merchant banks, and building societies. This means your deposits, such as your savings and checking accounts, are covered. Rest easy, knowing that your deposits are secure. Your deposits always protected. For more information, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at JDICJAM or visit our website at www.jdic.org.
JDIC, protecting deposits for you and me.
Let's delve deep into the issues. We'll take you beneath the surface.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Orville Higgins and it's another edition of Fan Central.
Talking to the people at the heart of the top sporting stories. Hear from your favorite sportsmen and women and the administrators who work tirelessly to make it all happen. It's live sports talk.
I've written an entire article.
Yeah.
Looking at all the major issues every Tuesday at 9 p.m. It's Fan Central.
Jamaica, make we do the right thing. Make we live good today for a better tomorrow. Talk it out. Don't fight it out. The time by the Ministry of National Security is
6:30.
We're continuing our conversation with Dr. Sandre Badri Maharaj here inside Lead Story as we talk with this security consultant about what it is that we're seeing here in the Caribbean and how the rest of the world's decisions are impacting us as well. Dr. Badri Maharaj, we're watching now a CARICOM Heads of Government meeting take place in St. Kitts and Nevis. Dr. Terence Drew, he's in charge of the Heads of Government until June, and we're watching Secretary of State Marco Rubio, someone we spoke about a moment ago, make his way down there. What does it mean for CARICOM to welcome Secretary of State Rubio at a time like this where CARICOM has not been united, but this does look like it's a pressure campaign from the U.S., as he says he's there to align the U.S. and CARICOM?
That is going to be inevitable. The U.S. national security policy documents have basically said they're treating this area as their fiefdom. The United States now sees itself as another imperial power. That is how the document reads. They're abandoning Europe to Russia. They're abandoning Asia to China. And they believe that the Western Hemisphere is their plaything. And for tiny countries like ours, we either fall in line without compromising our dignity, or we are going to face a lot of pressure which we can't withstand. We're not Asia. Asia could withstand almost anything. Europe can put up a united front against Russia. Asia, individual countries can fight China to a standstill. Africa is seen as a place to plunder by the United States, but Latin America as a whole, we have no country capable of standing up to them either alone or collectively. Again, we have to look at CARICOM's best interests here. Our best interest is to come out of this term of this particular president as unscathed as possible. And to that extent, we've had some positions that, to be honest, didn't really make a lot of sense in terms of reality. And I think our rhetoric has to match reality rather than ideals. And I think, on a very simple thing on Cuba, which I believe is very much, their Cuba policy is driven by Rubio. We have a very romanticized image of Cuba from Castro's time. I do not believe that we should look at Cuba today in the same way we looked at it back then.
Well, this is going to be fundamental to part of that conversation that's happening on the ground there in St. Kitts and Nevis as a CARICOM heads of government meeting takes place. But the United States, if we're to be coming out unscathed, well, they've thrown and lobbed some more bombs in our direction because the United States Supreme Court has ruled that President Donald Trump exceeded his authority in imposing certain tariffs. The court restrained the executive, and the president responded, putting 10% tariffs on the world and possibly even 15. Now, what does this legal conflict tell us about U.S. institutional stability? Because internally, their confusion is now becoming a global problem.
It is a massive concern, and this is why I'm saying CARICOM has to play its cards as right as it can play. Trump is a petulant president. I don't want to be particularly insulted, but that's how he acted. The Supreme Court decision, if any reading of the law, the Supreme Court was 100% right in its decision. And the fact is the president has every authority to go to Congress and say, look, we need these tariffs for A, B, C, D, and E. The reason he's not going there is because he knows he's going to get defeated because the tariffs raise prices for American consumers. They do not, he has sold a lie to his court, his base, that some foreign government is going to pay the tariffs. That's not the case. Foreign governments will compete for market access by lowering prices where they can. But ultimately, the U.S. consumer pays the tariffs, and he's sold a lie to his base. And now he's faced with the reality that the ruling opens up a lot of lawsuits for the tariffs collected thus far, a sum that he grotesquely exaggerates in every speech. And also, his tariffs now would seem to be limited to 150 days before it has to go to Congress. He is also exploring other options to deal with sector-wide tariffs, sector-specific tariffs and other things. All this is going to lead us to global trade instability and trade uncertainty. None of this is good for either the United States or the global economy. It is very good, though, for market speculators and a speculative group of money managers who incidentally seem to find places in his cabinet.
Well, given then that the Supreme Court of the United States on February 20 in a 6-3 decision said that they struck down a significant portion of his tariff program, and now, as you said, that 15% that he can put in place for 150 days is something that he has spoken of. We're now looking at a situation as well where there's been a call for rebates for persons who've paid those tariffs to get some money back. Of all of this that we're looking at, what does that tell small states about policy predictability, or in the case of the United States, unpredictability?
It shows this, that you have to remain as engaged as possible. You also have to brace yourself to start looking for other markets. This is what a lot of countries have done. We have been very slow off the mark in looking for other investors and in sources of investment and for other markets. I know Jamaica has emphasized a lot of Chinese investment in its infrastructure, which is fine, but there needs to be a diversification of every aspect of it, whether it is tourism to seek out new places to advertise our respective countries, or for our products to look at other places to sell to. All of these things need to be looked at carefully and need to be done with some degree of coordination among the nation states, because we don't want a duplication of effort where we can. And the other thing is we need to start understanding we need to create a manufacturing sector in the Caribbean, if only to provide employment. This is not going to be easy. And I have to say this, we also have to re-emphasize our own agricultural sectors, which, look, almost every country except maybe Guyana has neglected. And I'll be surprised to see how long Guyana is going to sustain it, because nobody in their right mind wants to actually do agriculture if they can help it.
In a country that might be in the middle of one of the biggest oil booms in history, and they're currently one of the fastest growing economies on the planet. Agriculture isn't going to be as exciting, but the rest of CARICOM has to deal with that. Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, and the rest of CARICOM imports the majority of its food, its fuel, its manufactured goods. What does a 10% global tariff mean for our inflation, our cost of living, our foreign exchange exposure, especially in Trinidad and Tobago, as you're having foreign exchange exposure difficulties as we speak?
We have to assume the tariffs at 15%. I think that's something we need to be clear. Although U.S. Customs and Border Protection seems to indicate that it's at 10% that they're collecting right now. I mean, this chaos is
so even the lack of clarity at this moment as to where we are and what number we're working with is that level of unpredictability that has now serious impacts on us.
It does. It does. However, that being said, this 15% is lower than most of us were experiencing in the first place.
Jamaica had a 10% though, so for us at least, the move up to 15% is more than we would have had to deal with. But other countries, including Trinidad and Tobago, would have experienced higher tariffs.
Yes. So again, there's going to be a lot of negotiations. There's going to, I think we're now starting to see the flaws in Trump's approach to governance, with respect to trade policy and tariffs. And this uncertainty is not going to be a good thing at all. And again, as I say, the only way out of it is to start looking at other places and other markets. And I emphasize this again. We have been very poor at attracting a diverse range of investment into our countries with an aim to creating new sectors and new areas where we can generate income. You know, countries have gotten comfortable with tourism, for example. They've gotten comfortable with, in Trinidad, too comfortable with the energy sector. We've not explored our services sector enough, and we've not explored the potential for our manufacturing sectors enough. So there's a lot we could do, and we need to start reaching out to other countries which we have friendly relations with. I'm talking about other Latin American countries, the European Union, growing economies like India, and start thinking in those terms now, which we're very bad at doing.
Well, it might be something that we're bad at doing, but we certainly would have seen a window, but we're seeing then other shifts that we have to pay attention to. We're at the 4th anniversary of the war in Ukraine, and we have a new war looming on the horizon. Not only is Cuba in the news and Venezuela, now Iran, with there being a potential move by the United States to go after Iran and the Iranian government. What kind of impact might that have on us, especially as Jamaicans might feel Iran is too far away? Help us understand why Iran matters.
It matters a lot for a number of reasons. One, Hezbollah has operations in Latin America. They did have operations in Venezuela, and they attempted to set up one in Suriname. Hezbollah is Iranian linked. Should things escalate, it's not inconceivable that a terrorist attack could take place against U.S. interests in this region. That's one. Two, oil prices are going to go completely haywire. Iran is a big producer of oil, and though it's out of the export market, tankers operating through the Straits of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf are going to face a great deal of risk.
As those are major oil transit routes.
Exactly. They're major oil transit routes, and Iran has enough anti-shipping missiles to create hell. I don't know if you remember the Iran-Iraq war, but there was an entire phase known as the tanker war, where oil tankers were being hit by both sides, in particular the Iraqis, but the Iranians were not backward either. So there was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of pressure on oil tankers moving in and out, and that is going to create additional problems for oil supplies. So what you're seeing is the United States is not going to necessarily, unless something gives within Iran itself, the United States could attempt to go after Iranian nuclear facilities again, which they apparently weren't so successful at doing despite their boasts. Iran is going to lash out within the region, and you could start seeing, for example, Saudi oil fields being targeted. It's happened before, so it could happen again. And we don't know how much damage could be done there, and the region has to be very wary about that fuel instability. countries import a lot of oil. I mean, we don't have a regional oil trading system. Countries depended on Venezuela, and now Guyana hasn't really taken that place.
So we are
have
then
a lot of trouble
small
coming.
states watching the world move around us and having to then survive in these very difficult moments. Dr. Sanjay Badri Maharaj, independent defense analyst and security consultant from Trinidad and Tobago, and clearly talking to us about what's going on in the region and around the world, wars, rumors of wars, and the instability CARICOM heads of government have to discuss at the latest meeting. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
A conversation that was necessary, one that helps you put in context what's going on all around the world. We'll take you across the world next inside our global current here inside Lead Story.
Hi, I'm Landy. Welcome to NLA Connect, the National Land Agency's customer engagement platform. NLA Connect is a simple, user-friendly platform designed to help you share your feedback, get support, and updates about land-related matters. Available 24/7, NLA Connect allows you to share suggestions, comments, and commendations, submit queries and report issues, attach files with your requests, track requests and get real-time status updates, connect with NLA client engagement officers, and provide feedback on the service received by the platform. We're making it easier for you to connect with us. You can access NLA Connect via our website, using the kiosk at any of our offices, or scanning the QR code displayed at our locations. Need any help along the way? Check out our FAQs section. It has all the answers you need in one location. NLA Connect, your voice, our priority.
Enjoy peace of mind knowing that your hard-earned money is protected by the JDIC. That's right, the JDIC through the Deposit Insurance Scheme guarantees up to $1.2 million of your deposits in commercial banks, merchant banks, and building societies. This means your deposits, such as your savings and checking accounts, are covered. Rest easy knowing that your deposits are secure. Your deposits always protected. For more information, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at JDICJAM, or visit our website at www.jdIC.org.
JDIC, protecting deposits for you and me.
We're inside our global current, taking you across the world for the big stories that you need to pay attention to, and one is close to home. We're first starting off in Mexico, with the New Generation gang leader killed in Mexico. The New Generation gang has now seen its senior figure killed in Mexico. Leadership has been decapitated in that organization, but it rarely ends cartel power. It often, though, triggers fragmentation. And fragmentation has to be something we look at here in Jamaica, because moving from Mexico as a transshipment point might mean that they move to the Caribbean. We'll take a look at this story and how it might impact Jamaica.
Nemesio Oseguera, known as El Mencho, was quite simply the most wanted drug lord in Mexico. Responsible for trafficking huge quantities of cocaine, methamphetamine and fentanyl into the United States, he'd evaded the authorities for years, until now. So far, the Mexican military has not released images, but El Mencho was injured during a raid in Jalisco State and then died while being taken to Mexico City. The Mexican embassy in the US said it was carried out with US intelligence. The reaction from his cartel has been immediate and violent. Unverified pictures, thought to be filmed in Puerto Vallarta on the Jalisco coast, show plumes of smoke rising over the tourist hotspot. And there's destruction across Mexico, including in Guadalajara, one of the host cities of this summer's FIFA World Cup. The US has warned its citizens to shelter in place as the violence unfolds. The killing of El Mencho represents a clear victory for President Claudia Sheinbaum and for President Trump, who's long demanded more progress on tackling Mexican cartels. But with some Mexican cities in flames, it's not yet clear at what cost. Will Grant, BBC News, Mexico.
Jordi Labraya is an independent journalist based in Mexico. He gave us this update.
Well, it's been nearly 12 hours since the news spread out that El Mencho, the most wanted criminal, not only in Mexico or the United States, but in globally in the world, was killed, was held by the authorities, and then when he was transported to Mexico City in a plane to a hospital, he passed away. So the reactions were immediately violent across all over Mexico in 9 of the states.
Immediately violent all across Mexico. That's what you're hearing there. El Mencho, one of the most violent criminals in Mexico and across the world because of his paramilitary approach. We'll continue then to watch what happens with the new generation cartel and what impact it might have on Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean. Now, moving you to the war in Ukraine. It's been 4 years into the war in Ukraine that we've been watching what has been going on since Russia started a war with Ukraine. But sanctions remain, front lines hold, and global grain and energy markets have been adjusting, given that Ukraine is one of the biggest wheat producers on the planet. For Jamaica, that means food prices, fuel costs, and diplomatic votes at the United Nations. Let's take a look at the 4-year anniversary.
In Kyiv's Orthodox Cathedral, a show of European unity after 4 years of war. But the Americans sent no senior officials, while Europe's divisions were plain to see. The Hungarians having just vetoed new sanctions on Russia, as well as a €90 billion loan to Ukraine. But Volodymyr Zelensky is still in charge here, giving viewers a guided tour of the underground bunker from where he ran Ukraine after Russia's full-scale invasion, from where he said he had turned down President Biden's offer to help him escape when the war began.
The floor is yours.
Today, he was trying to persuade European politicians to set a date for Ukraine's EU membership and to get the Hungarian veto lifted on €90 billion.
This is a real financial guarantee of our security and our resilience, and it must be implemented. And I thank everyone who is working to make it happen.
The town of Bucha was occupied by the Russians in the early weeks of the war, when Ukrainian civilians and prisoners of war were shot and buried in mass graves. The commemoration here in stark contrast to the absence of one in Russia, with no mention of this 4th anniversary on Russian state television.
So we're watching a situation then where we clearly have a difficulty in what's going on. Ukraine attempting to mark the 4th anniversary of what has taken place, Russia not doing so, and we could be having years more of this war and instability in the region, even as we have now heard that the U.S. might be gearing up for a war in Iran. We'll keep our eyes on this story and keep you updated on that. Now, we turn to New York and a blizzard. Again, a blizzard has disrupted major U.S. cities, including in United States and in New York. Flights have been grounded because of that, impacting tourism here in the region as well. Markets have slowed and supply chains have been interrupted. For the Caribbean, and we're certainly looking at that heads of government meeting there in St. Kitts, a country that depends heavily on tourism as well. It's not only going to affect tourism, but remittances and insurance markets. Let's take a look at the whiteout for the second time in New York.
New Yorkers are among those shoveling what's fallen so far, and forecasters have called for up to 2 feet of snow in many areas, along with heavy winds and reduced visibility. The city has banned non-essential travel on roads today, with schools closed there and in Boston. Other states along the East Coast have also made emergency declarations due to the storm.
So we are seeing the first blizzard our city has seen since 2016. And right now, the most up-to-date counts are giving us estimates of between 90 to 21 inches citywide, with certain localized areas up to about 22 inches. As of 5:30 a.m. this morning, the incredible men and women of DSNY had done a first plow of 99.3% of all of our city roads. There's been a shift change since then, and New Yorkers can stay up to date on that through Plow NYC.
BMX is about creativity, skill, and passion.
It's probably about the worst I've seen. I mean, I was here at the last big storm. I think that was around 2016 or something, but it wasn't as bad as this. And the problem is when the ploughs come past, they just throw up all the snow, and there's going to be a big bank here later, you know. So I'm digging it out now to get rid of some of this. It's hard work. I've already done it several times already this winter. It's getting a bit of a pain.
This is a once-in-a-lifetime storm. This is amazing. So my dog loves it, and I'm just gonna hunker down inside.
Unofficially called Winter Storm Hernando, this is what persons in the eastern seaboard of the United States are dealing with, including Jamaicans and other Caribbean nationals who are dealing with a very long and very, very snowy winter. All right, we had the whole show go on, and part of what we've learned today is that global power is not abstract. It shows up in a hospital bed in Westmoreland, in a summit room in St. Kitts, and in a courtroom in Washington. And when we look at what's going on all across the world, in the price of bread in Kingston, Jamaica does not control global events, but they need to understand them. And we must position ourselves with clarity. That is a story. Coming up at 8, we live on 4% of Jamaica, but the other 96% is where we can make our fortunes, if we do it right. So if Jamaica is a country that has a massive ocean footprint, why don't we have a single ministry making it all happen? Jamaica as a maritime state, are we thinking big enough? Join us at 8 for the full investigation on Lead Story Prime. I'm Jody Ann Quarry, and on behalf of the entire CVM production team, thank you for watching Lead Story's Global Lead. Have a fantastic evening, and I hope you stay safe. Up next, CVM News.
Watagwan. 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 Watagwan.
Watagwan. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 a.m., 1:30 p.m., and 10 p.m. on CVM TV.
Watagwan.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winford Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.